loser, but we've been against him. I didn't like him before. It was cool not to like him.
You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong.
Welcome to episode 199 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my co-host, writer, journalist, TV personality, and celebrity in Statesboro, Jessica Szilagyi.
No. Fix that.
The service human for the celebrity in Statesboro.
That was actually really funny. That Dave shared a photo of me and Stanley at an event recently, and he said, pictured here with his service human, which is so true because I literally am his maid, his chauffeur, his agent. I work for him.
Maintenance lady.
Yep.
You know, it's cold. Dog's looking at me. It wasn't even like, I've got to fix the heat because I'm cold. You're like, the dog's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, he had a speaking engagement, so, I mean...
I'm picturing Stanley with like a scarf around his neck and a hot tea.
Listen, he wore his velvet bow tie, and he was such a good boy because Stella wasn't there for him to compete with. But he minded all his manners, and he was a perfect gentleman, and he hammed it up.
And was coordinated to your outfit.
Of course. Well, actually, I coordinated my outfit to him.
Okay.
But yeah. Yeah. How was your trip?
Not bad. Not bad. We're down in Mexico. Eric is to hear all the stories twice because he edits 2 shows for me.
Poor Eric.
So Connie violated every rule with wild animals. Was feeding what's called a coati. And we had like 20 of them around us. It's a raccoon cousin. But they're very neat looking. They kind of have an anteater nose. And she started feeding a couple of them. And I guess they put the call out and had and she was just loved seeing the little baby ones coming up and getting food from her, and they were climbing all over the bed in our little poolside thing, little hut we had, and we left some French fries on the bed because she was gonna feed them later. Hopped in the pool, came back, and the little SOBs came and snatched one of the things of fries and took it off and just tore it up in the woods. You can see the container out there.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
But they are very cute animals. One of the staff members walks over, and I thought we were going to be in trouble. He walks over and starts petting him. He goes, "Oh, I've never been able to touch one before. This is really cool."
Okay, well, let's just all, deal with wild animals.
Well, the staff is not there to yell at anybody. They're there to make money.
Sure. Keep
the Americans spending money. But it was a nice resort called Paradisus La Perla. It's in Playa del Carmen, which is about an hour and a half south of Cancun Airport. Mm-hmm. We didn't leave the resort, just hung out. This was the husband-wife trip. We just kind of hung out. Our room was swim up.
Nice.
So we could walk off of the porch and into the main pool. And then had Connie on a float, inflatable floats we brought with us. I push her over like a tugboat over to the bar, load up on cocktails, and push back when it's time to go to dinner.
Oh, I love that you just referred to Connie as
No, I'm the tug.
Uh-huh.
I'm the tug.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that'll make her the barge.
Oh my God.
The cocktail barge.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. It was great. It's there were some people there. They're there to hoot and holler. We are not. Like someone's like, "Hey, you want to do shots?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to relax.
No, I don't do shots. I'm 44 years old. No, I don't want to do shots with you. I'd like a nice cocktail, please. Shot. Yeah. People forget that I'm there all with mostly middle-aged people, and they kind of forget that they're middle-aged. You see them the next day, like. Just like towel over their head, laying on a beach chair. One lady, Canadian lady, passed out. Passed out to the point where somebody had to make sure to keep her head above water. She passed out in the pool, and she was close to my age, like too old to be that drunk.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But I mean, hilarious.
Whatever happened on vacation, yeah.
Yeah, once they got her out of the pool and she was safe, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to watch a woman die right in front of us.
Right.
But I thought she was hamming it up. Like, no. Like, someone needs to carry her out of this pool.
No. No.
And for once, it wasn't me. But while I was gone... Oh! You are also have a new job, too. You are now a courtroom artist.
I am a courtroom artist. I am indeed. You know, I've done those drawings on local government meetings forever. And I don't know if I think we were doing the podcast, but I don't think you were on it yet when I did the Beaver trial back in 2019. And
I was on 2019.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we talked about the Beaver trial. I'm not sure, but I did a little sketch of that. But you know, the last several trials that I've been in have been like felony murder charges and sexual assaults, and then also like very detailed things where I'm literally scribbling or typing, depending on what I'm allowed to bring in the respective courtroom the entire time. I don't really have any time to play games. And this past week, I had to sit in on jury selection, and because they didn't do it ahead of time, and it's extremely boring. And so I drew a picture of the room, and I thought it was funny. The DA's office did not think it was funny. But whatever. Whatever. I don't really care.
What did they think was funny?
Because I said the ADA, I said his little thought bubble said, "Rawr, blah, blah, blah," because he's a jerk. So, I mean, like, that's what I said his thought bubble said, but whatever. He does say that. It's not inaccurate. Of course, it's just the hard-hitting journalism you can read on the georgiavirtue.com. It's just as high quality.
Well, it's a good thing you have a First Amendment.
Yes, but I've been in listen to this. The trial's not settled yet, so I'm not spoiling anything, and you're not hearing anything first. Sorry, but listen to this. The circumstances of this case. So, 2 years ago, maybe almost, actually like a year and a half ago at this point, there was a complaint about, smell of marijuana. The police showed up to an apartment. There were 5 people inside the apartment. One of them had a extensive felony background with ties to criminal street gang to the extent that the police knew who he was, had been kind of keeping an eye on him because he had, I guess, allegedly in the past sold drugs and things like that. So he was kind of on their radar. But they found a large amount of marijuana and a stolen firearm in this apartment when they got a search warrant to search it. And they charged everyone with felonies, which they often do. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I at least understand it because the presumption is that someone will squeal or roll, and when you do, then typically you null pros and dismiss, the other charges. But not in the Ogeechee Judicial Circuit, no. In October, the guy who had the criminal street gang ties and the criminal record, he pled guilty to all 5 counts, said it was his weed, his stolen gun. He basically took responsibility for everything. And the DA's office is like, great, thanks. Here's your sentence, because they did a plea agreement. But we're still going to prosecute all the other 4. And so basically, this trial has been focused on guilty by mere presence. They said that the DA's office argument is that there's constructive possession and joint possession by being there, and that they should have known there was weed there. Let me tell you where the weed was found. One of them was in a backpack in a closet. One was in a shoebox in a closet, and one baggie was in a liquor bottle type thing in the back of a toilet. So it was in a baggie, in a bottle, in the back of the toilet. I can tell you, I have been to many of my friends' houses over the last 33 years, and not once have I ever lifted the toilet tank to see what they have inside.
No?
No.
So you're not performing your due diligence.
I know. Totally. So anyway, it's been interesting watching. Of course, the jury. You never know what a jury's going to do, but like I say every time we talk about a case from the Ogeechee Judicial Circuit, we have like hardened criminals in our circuit. We have people who have committed legitimate murders and have robbed people at gunpoint and who've done things like steal identities or taken advantage of the elderly. And I mean, we have real criminals and we have open and shut cases. And yet every freaking week, just about, I'm sitting in a courtroom listening to a case of sheer stupidity. And you're like, why are we wasting resources on this?
So there's a whole team of lawyers getting paid to defend these folks against, I was at a house hanging out and he had pot hidden in the walls.
Mm-hmm. And Ziploc baggies in the kitchen cabinet and digital scales in the backpack and a firearm. And
well, I mean, you're guaranteed to find firearms if you're hanging at my house.
Well, hopefully they're not stolen.
No. I mean, I did pick up some of them at a steal, but back before COVID, of course. Mm-hmm. Speaking of court, Jussie Smollett's attacker has been found guilty.
He's such an idiot. The woke crowd. Go ahead.
They're going to get his ass for perjury. He went on the stand thinking he's like, some Oscar-winning actor. He's going to, do Richard VIII for these jurors, and they're going to believe him.
Yeah, he would have been better off doing some sort of like multiple personality disorder thing. But he, what I was going to say was the woke crowd has just had a really tough time lately because the Rittenhouse trial imploded right before their eyes. And then, of course, this case imploded long ago, but the trial just didn't really go well at all. And
not to mention the trial down your way, which went the correct way and convicted folks of killing somebody. And they, trust me, the woke crowd wanted that to go the other way so they could raise hell about it.
Yeah. I mean, and that happened the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So everyone knows it happened, but by and large, the media cycle on it was fairly short.
Right.
So.
And we have the parents of Michigan school shooter to be held accountable.
Yeah, the story is like a week old at this point, but obviously avid listeners know that last week I did a little recap while you were vacationing on the sandy beaches of Mexico, and I really wanted to talk about the story anyway, so that's why we're talking about it. And I don't think it's been talked, like the story itself has been talked about, but we were kind of talking about on the show, it's a very relevant, like this could be any parent.
Sure.
So
this is the first situation of its kind, at least to this magnitude. 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley killed 4 schoolmates at Oxford High School in Michigan, wounding 7 others. He was arrested relatively quickly, charged with murder, terrorism.
That same week, like during a press conference, the prosecutor kind of hinted that she was considering charging the parents, and we didn't really know why, other than the dad had bought his name's James, but he had bought a 9mm 6-hour the week before, I guess, and like there was this discussion, and of course, it's all speculation, and especially after the Rittenhouse case, I'm extremely hesitant to take what we hear from the mainstream media with a grain of salt, but they said it was purchased for him, and I'm not sure, like, I don't know how a father says that like a gun was purchased for his 15-year-old and in what capacity, but of course Ethan had posted it on Instagram and referred to it as his gun, but kids do stupid things all the time, so but that contributed to what the prosecutor said, and then the mother also posted about the gun, and she took him to a gun range, which is not unusual. I mean, teenagers go to gun ranges all the time, but they're not.
Sure, as long as mom or dad's there. Right. And look, I know lots of parents that have bought firearms for their teenagers and go, "This is your gun. I'm going to hold on to it. But when you're with me, we can go to the range. Or when you're with mom, you can go to the range, use it, and then when you're done, we're going to put it back in the safe. But this is your gun.
Right.
The same thing with I bought my first car when I was 15. I wasn't old enough to drive it by myself, but it was still, quote unquote, my car. Mm-hmm. It was registered in my parents' name, everything else. But that's money I worked and saved, and that was my car. But even though I referred to it as my car, of course, being a total redneck, it was a '76 Camaro.
Well,
same thing with these guns. It's everything belongs to the parents. It's not like that I've read anything that they took the kid, bought him a concealment holster, a bunch of ammo, and said, "Hey, good luck."
Right. And I think it's interesting. I think there's some. I'm not sure about these parents. Like, I don't know enough about them to say they're the worst parents in the world or that they're great. I think some of the text messages that have been released are a little bit, which obviously we're going to talk about, are a little bit questionable. But I think it paints an interesting thing about social media in that, like, people are so quick to just show off purchases. And I see people posting about guns online all the time. I'll talk about guns, but I don't really, I've never done the whole, like, check this out, look at what I've got. I'm not big on showing off inventory, but I guarantee you when these parents posted these photos online, they had they weren't thinking, how is this going to be perceived if my son does something with this gun? And I don't think parents don't think about that with a car, with a gun, with a knife, like nothing. But look how it's backfiring.
Well, the day before, teacher saw him searching for ammo on his phone and reported it to school officials.
I have a problem with that.
Well, I have a problem with him using his phone in class.
Yeah, for sure. That's the offense. Searching for ammo is not an offense. Like, first of all, no, he can't lawfully buy it, right? You have to be
handgun
18.
Ammunition? No,
right.
He's got to be 18 to
right. So
that stuff.
He's just looking, but like, you're reporting that he searched for ammo.
Yeah, the offense is you're at school, get off your phone. Mm-hmm. The day of shooting, teacher reported a drawing that showed a semi-automatic handgun pointing at the words, "The thoughts won't stop, help me."
And that was on Tuesday. So the ammo search was on Monday. The day of the shooting was Tuesday. I think it was like towards the afternoon. And in the morning, a different teacher saw this drawing.
A drawing of a bullet with words "blood everywhere" written above it.
Concerning.
Yeah, it's at least worth a talk.
Because in between the gun and the bullet was a person who had been shot and was bleeding. And then most concerning was a laughing emoji that he had drawn under this shooting scene. And then I guess the teacher also found a note that said, "My life is useless. The world is dead." So they took him to the counselor with an administrator, called his parents. I'm not sure if both parents attended, but at least one parent attended. And they said there's an issue. And the parents said there's not. And they sent him back to class.
Yeah.
And prosecutors suggested that the parents were to blame because they allowed the son to remain in the classroom despite meeting prior to the shooting with school administration. And, like, if that is your argument, that they're to blame because they allowed the son to remain in the classroom, then the school and the administrator and the counselor and the principal and anyone in that meeting and anyone who is aware of the situation is responsible under the law, the same way you want to say these parents are, because, like, the parents don't allow a child to stay in school. We've talked about all along how when you hand your kid over to school, like, you're giving them your property and you no longer have, like, schools are saying, oh, you can't check your kid out early, or you can't bring them lunch, or you can't stop by, or they can't miss this many number of days, or we're going to, take you to jail for truancy. If all of these things are true, then and the school felt that there was truly a threat, they should have suspended him.
Right. And
where's the zero tolerance?
Before the show, and I think we talked about it on the show at some point, the kindergartner or first grader, the guy that was suspended for biting a Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun. Because they have a zero tolerance.
Right. Zero tolerance has time and time again sent petty offenses and things for much, much less than depicting this, which I think goes well beyond art.
Well, and I was thinking about the art aspect of it. There are things that would have been considered disturbing to teachers when I was in high school. It would have been album cover art if you were trying to copy something off of and Justice for All or Ride the Lightning albums or a Megadeth cover, or certainly Iron Maiden with their album cover art. And it would have even back then, back in the 1920s when I went to high school, it would have raised alarm. But and again, no one searches this kid. Is this the only art? Does he have anything else?
Did you check his locker?
Right. What else? What else is going on here? Now, I don't want to play the woulda, shoulda, coulda game here, but you're right. If you're gonna hold the parents to the same standard and say, well, you should have known this could happen or this was going to happen. Certainly, the people with the boots on the ground that day, looking at this kid that day with this sort of stuff written out, the world is dead, and not look into it any further besides, do you want to come get him?
Yeah,
I think he needs to stay in school.
It's a pretty big deal to call parents and say, can you come here right now for a meeting? I mean, that's a big deal. If somebody called my mom while I was in school and said that, she would, without knowing any information, think something was terribly wrong, that I had done something very bad. So if that is the case and you think that it's worthy of the parents removing him from school and taking him to do whatever it is you thought they should do, why didn't you search his stuff? Why didn't you use your authority to send him to ISS?
Yeah, isolate. But again, we know that the Fourth Amendment does not exist for students on school grounds. So what would have been the harm in opening his locker, opening his book bag, and see what he's got?
And I want to be clear. I mean, I agree that they should have done all these things. I don't think the school administration should be held accountable under the law. I think that I don't think they should face criminal charges. But that's because I also don't think, if you want to charge the parents with something, charge the parents with something. But they've been charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. And I think that that's absolutely asinine. And
hunted down by the U.S. Marshals.
Well, they were in that warehouse. I mean, they didn't turn themselves in. They were supposed to turn themselves in, and they didn't. They said they were trying to get affairs in order. Their defense attorneys were quick to say, the prosecutors went straight to the media and issued bench warrants or had the judges issue bench warrants right away, which I don't doubt. I mean, look at how prosecutors behave a lot of times. I have no doubt that all that happened. But they were supposed to turn themselves in on a Friday by the close of business, and Saturday at 6 a.m. they still hadn't, and they were found at this warehouse, and typical for prosecutors, you say that these people, let's talk about the threat to the public, and these people were wanted and searched for by law enforcement and U.S. Marshals and a fugitive team. You get an anonymous tip, supposedly, with their car at this warehouse, and the first response from the prosecutor has nothing to do with Ethan Crumbley or the parents or how the case is going to move forward. It's, well, this warehouse had to be unlocked, and there was no forced entry, and so someone let them in, and so we're considering charges for that person too. No one cares. No one in the community or in this, who's watching this thinks that you should go after the person who let them in a warehouse because they were scared to turn themselves in. Nobody.
Yeah, the prosecutor standing up like Oprah Winfrey going, you get a felony charge, you get a felony charge, you get a felony charge. Good God.
It's the least of our worries.
In Michigan of manslaughter, defendant caused the death of the deceased victim, which makes sense, that the deceased individual died as a result of the defendant's action.
Okay. So that's for manslaughter, not involuntary. That's just basic.
Right. So, yeah, for manslaughter.
Right.
The defendant either intended to kill the victim, intended to do great bodily harm to the victim, or created a situation where the risk of great bodily harm or death was very high, knowing that as a result of the defendant's actions, he or she knew that serious harm or death would likely result.
That's what they're charging the parents under. That they should have known that buying the gun and allowing him to stay in school created a situation where the risk of great bodily harm or death was very high, and that they should have known the result of the actions would have caused this.
In my mind, to prove that, you have to prove, one, that I know he's got the gun.
On the day of the shooting.
Of the day of the shooting.
Right. You
Now,
also have to prove that they thought he would behave differently outside of how he behaved at a range, which was obviously reasonable, and because no one from the range has come out and said, oh yeah, he was pointing that gun at everybody and he was totally
right.
It's ridiculous.
It is. Felony is punishable by up to 15 years in prison, and a fine up to $7,500. That seems like really upside down, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
It's a decade and a half in prison and as much as $7,500.
Oh, sure. But there's 60 years each.
Yep.
So that's life. I mean, for them.
It is life. I would have, of course, I'm not privy to what the prosecutor, the investigators have, but if I'm a juror sitting there, I'm going to have a really difficult time saying that they knowingly created a situation in which this could happen. Well,
and the attorney for the parents, and the thing that sucks about the mainstream media and the people who absorb content from the mainstream media is that whoever gets the first statement out wins. And that's the end of it. And this attorney, I mean, again, I'm not trying to vindicate the parents by any means, but if you want to charge them with something that makes sense for the situation, and this is not it. But the attorney got on, put out a statement on Saturday morning after they had been located and had made their first appearance, and said, quote, "The gun was actually locked. So when the prosecution is stating that this child had free access to a gun, that is absolutely not true. While it's human nature to want to find someone to blame or something to point to or something that gives us answers, the charges in this case are intended to make an example and send a message. The prosecution has very much cherry-picked and slanted specific facts to further their narrative to do that. We intend to fight this case in the courtroom and not in the court of public opinion. We know that in the end, the entire story and the truth will prevail." And I can't disagree. I mean, everybody knows that they're trying to make an example. The parents, the prosecutor basically said as much in her press conference, saying,
And can I throw this isn't my actual theory, but a conspiracy theory. If we charge all of them, we can financially break them of their ability to defend themselves.
Yeah, I mean, $500,000 bond for each of the parents.
Right. And they both have to have an attorney, and the son needs to have an attorney. Mm-hmm. And defense attorneys, especially defense teams, expert witnesses, all the things that we've talked about before with other trials, is they can financially break these folks of the ability to defend themselves.
Well, and here's the thing. We know, I mean, there's no question that Ethan Crumbley killed 4 people and shot 7 others. Like, we know that to be the case, right? I mean, we're going to go through the motions. He's going to get he's got to have due process and all. We know all, but there's a certain baseline of information that is irrefutable, whether they plead insanity or, I have no idea what they're going to do, but that's to be determined. But there's a baseline of facts that everyone is going to agree on, that this did happen.
Well, but even with the insanity defense, you have to be able to afford expert witnesses.
Well, and
look, I'm not a psychologist, but I saw the pictures of the kid. There's something off about that boy.
I understand, but what I'm getting at is that, you know, the person who is responsible for the act is going to be held accountable. And I think a lot of people are outraged when we hear about, whether it's at a school or in public, like when there's a shooting and a number of people die, or even just one person, and then the shooter turns the gun on themselves, and it's like this unanswered, you know, and they feel like justice isn't served. Which is ironic, because those are usually the same people who say, skip the trial, fry them. And that, I mean,
right.
But I'm getting off track. But my point is that the person who did this is going to be held accountable. That person is alive. That person is in jail. That person, I mean, we know he did it. We know who it is. There's no question on that. So is this the right case? First of all, you should never use the law to make examples or send a message. That's disgusting. But out of all of the ones, is this the one that you should, if you're going to do that? Because you have somebody to pin this on. The responsible party is in the palm of your hand.
Right. Either, and look, this prosecutor may be totally anti-gun, so the fact that they bought a firearm and said, "Hey, this is yours," even if they had it locked up,
is the problem.
World's worst feminist, ladies and gentlemen. This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at thegeorgiavirtue.com.
Emotional.
Speaking of.
More women. Freaking.
And what a woman. Biggest Georgia news. Though not elected, Stacey Abrams is running for governor of Georgia.
Again.
Governor
Abrams is running for re-election.
Running for re-election.
Because she won. She just didn't get the job, remember?
Right. Because we're racist, sexist, bigots, right?
Were you out of town when this broke?
Yes. Stacey waited for me to leave the country. Like, okay, he's gone. Now I can announce.
Mm-hmm. I got the little news alert, and I was in the middle of something, and I literally out loud just said like 2 or 3 expletives and went back to what I was doing. Like, I don't even have time to mentally digest this, because I feel like we all knew it was coming, especially since the Democrats they haven't really put anybody else up. And when she didn't run for Senate and she didn't do her little presidential bid like she said she was, like, we really knew this rematch was coming. But still, I was just like, obviously I don't like her policies, but I really am just not looking forward to the rhetoric and having to go back. We're going back in time 4 years. We're going to spend the next 11 months talking about how Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State and administered an election for which he was on the ballot like every freaking Secretary of State before him, because the Secretary of State administers the elections.
Right. So
I hate her.
in an interview, Abrams wants to swing the spotlight to Kemp's record, arguing his failure to expand Medicaid to cover more low-income adults and his opposition to COVID-19 restrictions prove he doesn't have the best interests of Georgians at heart.
Quote, "We have a current governor who has failed the people of Georgia, that as the pandemic has raged, he has left behind too many communities, that he seems to ignore the real pain that's hurting families and hurting areas around the state, and that he seems to be focused on those who agree with him."
As she said to people who agree with her.
Well, not only that, but where has she been? Like, the Georgia Republican Party and the Republican voting delegation is in shambles. And people who supported him have turned on him. and he has held the line. Like, the one thing you don't have to like everything he's done, but my gosh, he's been the most consistent state official we've had in decades.
And I'm kind of a fan of the fact that he has a contentious relationship with the legislature.
It could be more contentious, but I agree.
Yeah. I mean, but the branches should not just sing "We Are the World" together. But look, if Stacey's stance is going to be Kemp should have locked us down, she's done.
I agree, but
she's done. We've had almost, by the time this election comes around, we'll have had more than 2 years. Almost 2.5 by the time election time comes around. 2.5 years of this, please God, make it stop pandemic. It's we're almost 2 years into 15 days to flatten the curve. And Stacey Abrams is going to stand up and tell parents who are at the end of their ropes with their kids' school being in, out, study from home, go to class, wear a mask. She can stand up and tell all these soccer moms who have had to have their lives upended with their kids and say, oh, we should have locked them down, closed the schools quicker, kept kids in masks, require vaccines, or whatever else she comes up with. It ain't going to fly here.
Okay, but the biggest problem we've got on the Republican side is that we don't know who she's going to face. Because we've got, let's talk about the responses from the potential opposition. Because when she announced, it was Vernon, Candace, Shane Hazel on the Libertarian ticket, and then Kemp. So, Vernon.
Today, Stacey Abrams joined the race for governor with plans to introduce the same failed liberal agenda in Georgia that is hurting Americans in every corner of the country. Radical leftists like Stacey Abrams are why I left the Democrat Party. And the last thing I will allow them to take is our beloved state. That is why I'm running for governor. In 2018, Brian Kemp defended Stacey Abrams by the skin of his teeth. Defeated, sorry. Clean my glasses. By the skin of his teeth. And in 2020, he betrayed us. In 2022, we cannot afford to cut it so close. I am the only candidate in the race for governor who can grow the party, defeat Stacey Abrams, and take Georgia back.
He's a freaking idiot. He also tweeted and said, Stacey, welcome to the race. I look forward to you attempting to call me a racist on the debate stage. That won't work this time. # feel the Vern. There's so much, everybody knows that when you put out a statement about something like this, you got to keep it short and sweet. And his is, because I could just pick apart his 4-paragraph dumbassery. But, don't sit here and talk to me about what radical leftists have done when you spent years in the Democrat Party. And don't tell me what you would have done when you changed. We all know why Vernon changed parties. So I'm not going to go down that path. But Vernon Jones would deliver us Governor Stacey Abrams. There is no question in my mind, because I would not show up to vote for him. Look,
the only reason he's running for governor is that's the only way he can live in district.
Yeah.
Oh, Vernon. Nice yoga pants. We have Candace Taylor.
Well, she said, Georgia is not the same Georgia she ran in last time. She will need good luck because the favor of God is resting on Georgia. We are taking our state back to the people. Morality over money. No establishment politicians. Grab your boots because this is going to get deep. # Taylor22. And she shared Stacey's ad. Now, Candace is from Baxley in Appling County, and we talked about her when she ran for Senate, and we've briefly talked about her gubernatorial race. But every time I don't get a whole lot of information from her, but every time I go looking for information on her, I see her in Arizona or Florida at Mar-a-Lago, or posing with people who aren't in Georgia because she's on that Trump overturning the election. And if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. That's fine. I'm not here to debate that. But she's running for governor of Georgia, and she's not doing anything locally. And by locally, I mean in the state.
I'm not sure she's got deep enough pockets
Well, she's traveling on planes to go to places. She can't drive a couple counties over.
No, I agree with you on that. I'm saying overall, this race is about to get very expensive. And one of the things that worries me with Stacey Abrams is she gets to sit around and keep her powder dry.
Yeah, and Republicans are going to destroy each other. Like in the tweet she retweeted, she doesn't have as many followers as Vernon or Kemp or Shane Hazel or even and obviously Stacey, but she retweeted this tweet that said, the fact that this is even happening, talking about Stacey running, is further proof that Georgia Governor Kemp, AG Chris Carr, and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger all should be in jail for treason. Stacey Abrams should be in Gitmo for ballot harvesting and cheating. 2022 winners should be Candace Taylor, Herschel Walker, and Scott Pressler.
And that was Rhonda Simpson that she retweeted.
I have no idea who that is.
Neither do I, but I want to give proper credit because obviously we have such a wide reach in Georgia that she would be upset if we didn't mention her name.
Yeah, true.
I don't know, man. That tweet is moronic.
And I meant to say this when you brought it up about Vernon, because I know we're not going to harp on what Brian Kemp. We know what Brian Kemp thinks of Stacey Abrams, but it wasn't that close. Like saying that the election between Brian and Stacey was close was sounds like a Stacey Abrams talking point to me. I mean, it was over 10,000 votes, and when you look at Ossoff and Perdue and Loeffler and Warnock, who lost, like the margin of Kemp winning was substantial. It wasn't 40 votes.
Well, we have Candace also. We will have our first female governor, a true Georgian who represents the people, morality, the nuclear family, and protects the Constitution at all cost. I just happen to be the one who stepped up and has worked hard as humanly possible. And this was retweeting Monica on Air, which I don't know who Monica on Air is, but she has a blue check mark.
She's from WSB. You're going to get... yeah.
It's fine with me. It's going to take a woman to defeat a woman in Georgia. Trust that. It will take someone who fights for election integrity to fight for the grifter, to fight the grifter of election integrity. At Candace Taylor, at Real Liz something.
Well, God. And like I said, we're not going to harp on what Brian Kemp has said because we know. But Shane Hazel took the route of that Stacey was at the Bilderberg meetings, and you know, she's just a typical bureaucrat that buys into the system of central banks and corporations that continue to sell us out and all that. And I don't disagree. I just don't know how, like she is.
Look, man, I
don't know.
Shane is really good on Twitter and stuff. But you called her participant Stacey Abrams, which is hilarious.
But I'm not sure how the message resonates with the traditional voter because they don't know what some of this stuff not everyone follows like the limited government approach, so they don't know why this is bad. And
Shane's also super smart, heady guy who read the Anti-Federalist Papers and really a super heady guy. And I think some of that goes over people's heads. You know, it's just that's what we have with the electorate. I like what George Carlin said, which is think about how dumb the average person is and realize half the population is dumber than that guy.
And then, as if all of this wasn't bad enough, on Sunday, David freaking Perdue announces that he's running for governor too. Because Trump wants him to, and then Trump endorses him. And now we've got a full-on goat rodeo.
I don't think Trump's coattails are that wide or that strong right now.
Well, if David Perdue's going to take votes from anyone, it's going to be Vernon Jones and Candace Taylor. I don't think he's going to pull votes from Kemp. What I'm worried about is the damage that they're going to do in the meantime, and the tearing down and the hit piece. Like, it's like a primary from 4 years ago all over again. But I agree
he
with
lost to Pajama Boy like 5 minutes ago.
literally this year.
He lost to Pajama Boy.
But he's got money.
And he thinks, yeah, and he thinks, and this is a guy who would not show up. Shane Hazel was in that race also, would not show up to debate Hazel after saying he would on Shane's show. He thought he was just going to walk in and keep his seat. He thought the Warnock seat was the bigger problem. He has the Perdue name. He had plenty of money. He has his Canadian tuxedo, and he thought he would just walk right back into the Senate. And he obviously is not somebody who is prepared to do a statewide drag-out knuckle fight, because he had his opportunity. He had a weak opponent. I mean, just looking at us. Just look at him.
He couldn't beat a Democrat, so he wants to beat a Republican, and then then he thinks he can beat Stacey Abrams. Really?
Beat at least 3 other Republicans, and then go take on Stacey Abrams.
But he's already started. I mean, he is hammering Kemp. He started. I wouldn't have certified the elections. Okay, so you wouldn't have complied with state and federal law? Okay.
Nobody can tell me what Kemp should have done. We shouldn't have certified the election. Okay, and do what? On what basis?
His opinion. I mean, at that time, we had no information to not certify the elections, other than hunches and inklings and stuff like that. I mean, we just didn't. Like, I don't care what you say. In the however long the period is before when they have to certify it, there was no investigation opened and completed, and he was legally required to certify if the Secretary of State sent them to him, he had to sign them. That's how it works. Do you want a governor that says, I'm not going to follow the law because this is how I feel, or I don't like the outcome?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Because they're mad at Pence also for certifying the election. Yes, they do. They think that this is the same crowd that thinks that Trump could have just stayed in the White House. Just don't let the Electoral College sit. Just don't have the vote. Just don't certify it. Everybody just say no, and he'll just hold on to the White House, and we'll figure it out later. Who the hell thinks that's a good idea? If Obama had said that, well, the race is too close between Trump and Clinton. We're not going to certify it. I'm going to stay in the White House until we decide that Hillary Clinton was the winner, because that's who I wanted to win.
That's what Stacey Abrams, I mean, it's the same damn thing she did in 2018.
I mean, just good God Almighty. What the hell do people think he could do? Now, look, if you don't like Kemp's policies, fine. That's fine. That's an argument you can have. That's a totally legitimate argument to have. But overall, with him resisting lockdowns, with the way he's handled most of COVID, I didn't like shutting stuff down to begin with, but his quickness to open back up, his resistance to mandates has been better than average. And we've got Stacey Abrams over there saying, no, he should have locked down faster and longer and kept everybody home. She's a jackass.
She will ruin our state.
No, she won't.
Yes, she will.
No, because the Republicans will hold on to the House. And
I don't know. I believe that.
Ralston will turn in to Ron Paul.
I think you're wrong. I think that I think we will continue, no matter how they're going to contest these maps, as they should, because they're freaking bogus. I mean, they're gerrymandered just like all the others, and they gerrymandered them in 2011, and look how they trended blue. I mean, we're going to continue to lose unless Georgians just take this mindset that leans more libertarian than, quote, traditional Reagan Republican of growing government. Like, unless people take the approach that, like, enough is enough, and COVID actually had an effect on people and their livelihood and their children and their family and every intricacies of whether or not they could even leave their home, unless people see and acknowledge how out of control and how much power our government has and continues to take, we will continue to trend that way because Republicans have paved that pathway for Democrats to be that extreme because our Republicans are so far to the left.
Oh, absolutely. It's both parties are drifting left. Republicans are just doing it slower. You know, we want $1 trillion spending package. No, we want $5 trillion. Well, that's way too much government. $5 trillion. The $1 trillion is where we should be. No, you're absolutely right. Until people wake up and realize that the government is not the answer. The government, what's the quote? If the government is the answer, it's a stupid question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just, I'm not optimistic. I mean, I hope that you're right, but I just really don't think that the way that we have trended, losing House seats in every cycle, and again, that, you know, that only goes so far because of how much power the freaking legislature has surrendered to the governor's office and to unelected bureaucrats by way of the state school board that is appointed by the governor and the board of regents, which is, you know, what Sonny Perdue wants. You know, all of these state agency heads that have so much power and so much autonomy and lack oversight and get so far down the pipeline before they have anybody say, hey, I think something's wrong here. The damage that can be done, our state won't look like it looks today.
Oh, no, of course it won't. It'll stop being business friendly, first of all.
Yeah.
Because Stacey would want to make sure that every American's paying their fair share. I hate that term. Of course, Hannity and Trump unite to stop Stacey.org.
Well, now Georgia's back on this national stage of rhetoric. Like, we're not going to talk. When we had the primary and I had the opportunity to interview everyone in their primary race, we were talking about issues, not just in my interview, but on debate stages, in mailers, on their social media pages. They talked about justice reform. They talked about medical cannabis. They talked about education. I mean, it wasn't like deep diving like a lot of us nerds would like to see. And I don't mean that term negatively. I hope no one is sensitive to the term nerd. I mean it positively. But, you know, like, they were still on this pathway of issue-driven campaigning. And then when it was Kemp versus Abrams, everything just went to hell in a handbasket, and it turned into rhetoric, the most extreme rhetoric I have ever seen in a statewide race. And we are starting at that point this time.
Well, right. We're not talking about supporters. We're talking about fans. And there are people that I know, there are people on my Facebook that everything is Trump. And one, I mean, David produced stuff already. What? Trump wants him. Trump. Like, Trump's done. If you want to address him again in 2024, that's fine. Trump's done.
I don't care who Trump wants my governor to be.
Right.
He doesn't live here. He doesn't vote here. I don't want him meddling in our elections. And ask yourself,
and the same is true of
why?
all the Hollywood a-holes. They're going to be here knocking on doors, doing commercials for Stacey Abrams.
Well, I mean, arguably Trump was one of those Hollywood a-holes at one point. He had The Apprentice. But, I mean...
he was also in Home Alone 2.
Yeah. This outside influence, though, is just, like, it's not necessary, and it's toxic for the outcome because it's obviously working. It's working.
Well, and that's...
People are buying it.
That's what I was talking about with the Shane Hazel stuff being super, super heady and very, very, very smart. But that's not what people are into. People aren't policy wonks. People are into Orange Man good, Orange Man bad. And I'm seeing signs, I don't know if it's Heist that has it out there, endorsed by Trump. It's one of them that's running for Secretary of State, endorsed by Trump. Why do I care who Trump wants to be the Secretary of State? Now, I can both agree that Raffensperger has been a train
loser,
wreck.
but we've been against him. I didn't like him before. It was cool not to like him.
Jessica, we're running long. Let's get to the closing thoughts because we do have some important stuff going on.
Too mad. You go.
Too mad. We are going to
Women
take
are
some time
emotional.
off.
Women are emotional. Yeah.
Like when you said your heat wasn't working, it was like really emotional.
Yeah, I was really emotional about it.
We're going to take a couple weeks off for Christmas holiday. We're also going to do some revamping. Have a little different look, maybe a little different sound on the podcast. It'll still be the two of us. So I'm sorry about that. And we're working on something for 200 that'll be the first show of 2022 will be our show 200. So we're working on something for that before we have to get into session and deal with what the legislature is going to do. So, and obviously ramping up towards the primaries and all that, but we want to have a little fun first.
Yes.
I agree. You had some fun with the show last week. I know it was a lot. Jessica did a great job putting it together. I really enjoyed listening to it. And I had no idea that's what was happening. I saw it pop up and put my headphones on. I was like, oh man, this was a really good idea. Well done. I had nothing to do with it. Jessica did all the heavy lifting on that. But we want to have something really fun for show 200. That'll be around the 1st of 2022. Jessica, you cooled off a little bit.
Merry Christmas. Happy
Merry
New
Christmas.
Year.
Happy New Year. We will talk to you soon. I want to give a big thank you at the end of the year. Thank you to Eric Cumby, our editor, who takes the audio that we send him and cleans it up to something you can listen to. Jessica, as my partner on this podcast, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
When we say, what are you thankful for this year? You're absolutely one of those things I'm thankful for.
Oh, Dave. I'm so thankful for Connie. And that you have connected me with Connie.
Yeah, Jessica sent a Christmas card to Connie.
That's Connie Roberts on the envelope.
So thank you all for listening. We will talk to you in the new year.